So one thing that you never want to have happen is getting fed to the belly of the beast on a ship. One of the most be put into the middle of an Indian teepee. So I pretty much made a video today explaining how great it would be to smash down an entire house and have this just be like one way to have it be cleaned, and it could be like a snake shedding its skin, and you can go and do that whenever you seem fit. I think that this would be beneficial if the house was a cross between an Indian teepee and a barn. A pickup line would be like, would you like to build a barn? And then I think that the science community has to be bashed because they keep trying to relate two things. The early universe's origins being how that's your own being. And then I've seen this the second time through new advances in finding out how the muon particles are abundant, is tapping into their frequency on the small scale where they're easy to find. And then they keep tying the arbitrary components that have to be done in order for them to be exposed, and they like tie that into how you are part of that compulsion of arbitrary. Life is able to be a thing, but when life isn't a thing, what happens? Speaking in English, just blabbering about random stuff, ends up explaining when it comes to granite, a granite counter or a chandelier of crystal is nothing more than a Pythagorean diagonal making how well a beam was. But that chaotic dystrophy of bringing that room down is reflected upon the beam in between the two things that are real, the granite table and the crystal chandelier. Anything plastic and fake in between those is what would most crud would be around. And so collapsing that all is bringing the house down, doing that for each room, and how well you are able to utilize that diagonal is a credit. So I mentioned an early plasma and a leaky gut because these are both shapes that are kind of oblong. Oblong means wide, but not far-fetched, because there's a certain amount of things that you will eat in your life, and it's all going in one specific area, the gut. And there's an early plasma where no matter where you go or what you do in your life, you're always bound to it as it being the past. So one of the reasons we're building a house that would be hybrid and, you know, it would have these safety mechanisms where a room could collapse and then everything about it would not be eviscerated or vaporized through like a giant warhead going off. Something as catastrophic as that would be a sun imploding. In all seriousness, how would you make a construct that couldn't be eviscerated or vaporized? Okay, I got a game plan, but it's not pretty. We can't pretend to be a sitting duck. You can't pretend to play possum. And then we're the salt of the earth. And that can be represented as a monolith. How could you make a monolith be able to have a garden about it? This has to be thought up of as like an Indian rain stick when you were twisting it upside down and right side up. There's certain types of things like pistons. Did you just hear that car start behind us? That's how pistons pop up and down, and how fast they go is the miles per hour. This is what's seen on a growth rate during germination, and is an actual attribute. Certain vectors that all come together. This can be calculated as how a fetus grows. So I had a hard time learning how to read. I think I understood that this was going to be an issue down the road where a lot of my fellow classmates would cop out. And I slowly learned, but I didn't learn until it was like really apparent, like the easiest way to learn it. And I think that has to be done with blueprints, or in academia, wording diagrams. And how you can do that is couple it with another boring thing, a chemical reaction scheme. And how to understand both of them together would be tripling down with a pseudocode, a computer engineering design of a program. So conceptually, you've got to weigh out how likely is that versus the likelihood of everything getting fixed by someone coming up with a solution to not have the weather change anymore, or end bacteria that could be dangerous. I'd say the likelihood is near none, but at least in the pathway to victory is laid out if you have a deductible tax with a definite amount of crud. If you can politicize someone's life, you can ostensibly control stuff that isn't yours. This is the same thing of which happened in religion. Said that the Creator knew you before you were born. This would entail in astrophysics our bodies being somewhere inside of an early plasma. The Big Bang, ostensibly, the gate of the plasma. The Big Bang happened prior to an early plasma. It's a fantastic view, but it doesn't mean that it can be controlled as your spirit or your soul being sold out. And that's pretty ghetto, but yeah, you'll get thrown out if you talk about. But that's just, that's one part. The second part is that they don't respect you. And one way to gain the respect of your government is to show how much dirt is getting swept under the rug in between the crud of the science is trying to get is everyone unifying as one in order to get fed into the belly of the beast. A house that would be hybrid and, you know, it would have these safety mechanisms where a room could collapse and then everything about it would not be eviscerated or vaporized through like a giant warhead going off. Something as catastrophic as that would be a sun imploding, as opposed to everyone believing that we're all one spiritually, but it's very easily misunderstood because the spirit is in the body and the body doesn't define the spirit. So what they're trying to do is you utilize your utilities, rectify the belly of the beast in order to engulf everyone in it, as opposed to finding respect and all the misinterpretations in modern science to utilize the early plasma to open the gates before it of what the Big Bang was, make like a monolith so that can be utilized as like a garden or whatever you want out of it. Lowest common denominator or least common multiple in any case can't be you selling out into a belly of the beast thinking it is like the best outcome on earth. So in order to not be fooled by that, you have to understand, even if the science is right, that it's an incomplete science, because why I feel so confident that you can put any chemical in the unit circle is because chemicals are made up of elements, and the table of elements is almost done, but